She stood there in the corner of the Sterling Tower ballroom, invisible among the glittering crowd. 1,000 Omega women moved through that space like living jewels, silk gowns that cost more than most people earned in a year, diamonds dripping from throats and wrists, hair styled into impossible sculptures of beauty. The air was thick with expensive perfume and the hum of anticipation. This was the event of the century, the mating ceremony of the Blackwood triplets. 3 alpha heirs to the most powerful pack in North America. Every unmated Omega from every prominent family had fought for an invitation to this night. Some had trained their entire lives for this moment. But Nova wore a gray maid's uniform. She wasn't supposed to be seen. She was supposed to fade into the wallpaper, refill champagne glasses, and disappear before anyone noticed her existence. Because Nova had no wolf. She never shifted. Never would. At 23 years old, she was wolfless in a world where that made her less than nothing. She was a mutation. A genetic mistake. Her own pack had thrown her out at 16 when it became clear her wolf would never emerge. Since then, she'd survived on the fringes, taking whatever work she could find, invisible to the world that had rejected her. She was pouring champagne at a corner table when it happened. The massive oak doors at the entrance swung open, and the entire ballroom fell silent. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Every eye turned toward those doors. Because the Blackwood triplets had arrived. Cade entered first. 6'4" of pure dominance, his jet-black hair swept back, his gray eyes scanning the room with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. Behind him came Riker, identical in appearance, but different in energy. Quieter, more calculating, danger wrapped in expensive fabric. And then Ashton, the youngest by 4 minutes, with that wild edge that made even other alphas nervous. The room seemed to hold its breath. These 3 men would choose their mate tonight. One Omega would become the most powerful woman in the supernatural world. The rest would go home shattered. Nova kept her head down. She was reaching for an empty glass when the scent hit her. It wasn't supposed to be possible. Wolfless Omegas didn't have sense. They didn't trigger anything in alphas. They were functionally invisible to the mate bond, to pack hierarchy, to every biological imperative that governed their world. But something slammed into her chest like a physical force. Her hand froze on the champagne bottle. Her breath caught in her throat. Every nerve in her body suddenly came alive, screaming at her to turn around, to look up, to run. She didn't know which. That's when she felt it. The weight of eyes on her skin. She looked up before she could stop herself. All 3 Blackwood brothers were staring directly at her. Not at the room full of perfect Omegas. Not at the daughters of senators and pack leaders. Not at the women who'd been groomed since birth to be worthy of this moment. At her. The maid. The wolfless reject in the corner. Cade's eyes had gone completely black. Riker's jaw was clenched, so tight, she could see the muscle jumping. Ashton took 1 step forward, then another, like he was being pulled by an invisible chain. The ballroom erupted in confused whispers. Heads turned. Eyes followed the triplets' gazes until they landed on Nova, and then the whispers turned to gasps, to shocked silence, to something that felt like the moment before an explosion. Because this wasn't possible. This violated every law of their biology, every rule their world was built on. Alphas didn't react to wolfless Omegas. The mate bond didn't work that way. It couldn't. But Cade was moving now. Through the crowd. His brothers flanking him. 3 apex predators moving with singular focus, and that focus was her. Nova's champagne bottle slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. She should run. Every instinct she had left was screaming at her to run. But her body wouldn't move. She was frozen, watching these 3 impossibly powerful men cross the ballroom toward her while 1,000 Omegas and their families watched in absolute horror. When Kate stopped in front of her, so close she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, he spoke 1 word. His voice was rough, almost pained, like the word was being ripped out of him against his will. Mate. And in that single moment, Nova's entire world The world that had rejected her, thrown her away, told her she was worthless. That world shattered into a million pieces. Because the three most powerful alphas in North America had just claimed the one omega nobody wanted. What happened in the next 60 seconds would start a chain reaction that would tear apart pack alliances that had stood for generations, expose secrets that were supposed to stay buried forever, and reveal that Nova's lack of a wolf wasn't a weakness at all. It was something far more dangerous. Something that would make her the most hunted woman in the supernatural world. And if you think you know where this is going, if you think this is just another Cinderella story where the rejected girl gets her happy ending, you don't know anything yet. Not even close. Chapter 1. Now here's where it gets insane. Nova wasn't supposed to be at the Sterling Tower that night. She wasn't supposed to exist in their world at all. But 3 months ago, when she'd shown up desperate for work, willing to take anything, the Blackwood brothers had hired her on the spot. No questions asked. No background check. They'd given her a tiny room in the servants' quarters, a uniform, and instructions to stay out of sight. She thought it was mercy. She thought maybe, finally, someone had seen past her wolfless status and given her a chance. She had no idea they'd been fighting a war inside themselves since the moment she walked through their door. Because every night, while Nova slept in that cramped room with its single window and thin mattress, all three Blackwood brothers stood outside her door. Not together. They didn't coordinate it. But Cade would show up at midnight, his hand pressed against the wood, his wolf clawing at his insides. Riker would arrive at 2 in the morning, his jaw clenched, sweat on his brow from the effort of not breaking down that door. And Ashton would be there at dawn, his forehead against the frame, whispering words he'd never say when she was awake. Their wolves were screaming. Every instinct they had was telling them she was theirs. Their mate. Their omega. The one they'd been searching for their entire lives. But she had no wolf. And that made her impossible. Their father, Alpha Theron Blackwood, had built an empire on strength and pure bloodlines. He'd told his sons since they were children that their mate would be extraordinary. Powerful. Someone worthy of the Blackwood name. Someone who could strengthen the pack, secure alliances, produce strong heirs. Not a wolfless omega who served champagne and scrubbed floors. So they'd planned tonight. This elaborate mate selection ceremony. They'd invited every unmated omega from every prominent pack across the continent. Daughters of senators. Granddaughters of council members. Women who'd trained in combat, in politics, in pack leadership. Women who could stand beside them without shame. They were going to choose one of those women. They were going to reject this insane bond their wolves felt for Nova. They were going to prove that biology could be wrong, that they were stronger than some primal instinct, that they could control their own fate. That was the plan. And Nova had no idea any of this existed. She thought she was just another servant working another event. She'd seen the brothers around the tower, of course. Had felt something strange whenever they were near, a pull she couldn't explain. But she'd learned years ago to ignore feelings like that. Hope was dangerous for someone like her. Hope got you hurt. She was in the kitchen 3 hours before the ceremony, helping prepare canapés she'd never be allowed to eat, when she heard them. The brothers were in the hallway just outside. Their voices carried through the half-open door. Cade spoke first. His voice was hard, controlled, the voice of someone making a difficult decision. We choose tonight. One of the Ashford daughters, maybe. Or Victoria Sterling. Strong bloodlines, good pack connections. Father expects an announcement by midnight. That was Riker. Always practical. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. And we forget about the other thing. Ashton's voice was rougher, like the words cost him something to say. We forget about her. Silence. Long enough that Nova's hands froze in the middle of arranging smoked salmon on toast points. She's wolfless. Cade again. The pack would never accept her. Father would disown us. Everything we've built would collapse. She's also our mate. Ashton's words came out almost as a growl. My wolf is barely contained around her. You two feel it too. Don't pretend you don't. What we feel doesn't matter. Riker's voice cut through like ice. We have responsibilities. The pack comes first. It always comes first. We choose a proper mate tonight. We complete the bond, and this insanity ends. Does she know? Ashton asked. Does she feel it too? She's wolfless, Cade repeated. She probably doesn't feel anything. She's practically human. This is just our wolves malfunctioning, fixating on something they shouldn't. It'll pass once we bond with someone else. Nova's chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed her heart until it stopped. She pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from making a sound. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. Not while she could still be heard. They felt it too. This pull. This ache she'd been carrying for 3 months. This feeling like something vital was missing whenever they weren't near. They felt it. Their wolves recognized her. And they were going to reject her anyway. Because she wasn't enough. She'd never been enough. Not for her family, who'd thrown her out. Not for the packs who'd refused to take her in. Not for the world that looked at her and saw nothing but a mistake of genetics. And not for the 3 men whose wolves called to something deep inside her that she'd thought was dead. We should go. Cade's footsteps moved away. The guests will start arriving soon. Remember, confident, decisive, no hesitation. We choose someone tonight, and we don't look back. Their footsteps faded down the hallway. Nova stood there in the kitchen surrounded by food she'd helped prepare for a ceremony designed to erase her. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She should leave. She should walk out of this tower right now, take her few belongings, and disappear into the city before she had to watch them choose someone else. Before she had to stand there invisible in her gray uniform while they announced a bond with an Omega who deserved them. But she couldn't move, because underneath the pain, underneath the shame and the familiar weight of rejection, something else was stirring. Something she hadn't felt in 7 years. Anger. These men had hired her knowing what she was. They'd let her work in their home, sleep under their roof, exist in their space, while fighting this bond in secret. They'd made her believe maybe she'd found somewhere safe. Somewhere she could just exist without being reminded every second of what she lacked. And all along, they'd been planning this. Planning to choose someone else. Planning to prove she wasn't worth claiming. The head housekeeper swept into the kitchen. Nova, the ballroom needs final touches. Fresh flowers on the center tables. Champagne stations checked. Move quickly. Guests arrive in 2 hours. Nova wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She straightened her uniform. She took a breath that hurt going down. Yes, ma'am. She would stay. She would do her job. She would stand in that ballroom and watch the Blackwood brothers choose their perfect Omega mate. And then she would leave the city, this world, everything behind. She'd survived before without a pack, without a family, without anything but her own determination. She would survive this too. What Nova didn't know was that the moment she stepped into that ballroom, the moment the brothers caught sight of her, every plan they'd made would shatter. Because you can't logic your way out of a true mate bond. You can't choose duty over destiny, no matter how hard you try. And the Blackwood brothers were about to learn that lesson in the most public, most catastrophic way possible. Chapter 2. You think this is a Cinderella moment? You're wrong. Because what Nova said next shocked everyone. She looked at Cade's outstretched hand, at his face, so confident, so certain that she would simply fall into line because 3 powerful alphas had decided she was theirs. She looked past him at the ballroom full of people staring at her like she was some kind of circus attraction. At the cameras broadcasting this moment to every pack in North America. At her mother's horrified face in the crowd, that same look of disgust Nova had seen when she was 16, and her wolf never came. And she said one word. No. The silence that followed was absolute. Not a breath. Not a whisper. Even the live stream comments seemed to freeze. Cade's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Confusion. Disbelief. Like she'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. What did you say? Nova's voice was shaking, but she forced it steady. She'd learned how to swallow pain a long time ago. I said no. I reject this bond. I reject all three of you. Riker moved forward now, his calculated composure cracking. You can't reject a mate bond. That's not how this works. You were going to. The words came out harder than Nova intended. Louder. She didn't care anymore. 3 months of feeling like she was going insane. 3 months of not understanding why her chest ached whenever they were near, why she couldn't sleep, why everything in her wanted to go to them. And they'd known. They'd felt it too. And they were going to choose someone else. I heard you. 3 hours ago. In the hallway outside the kitchen. You were going to pick one of these perfect omegas and forget I existed. Well, congratulations. You don't have to feel guilty anymore. I'm doing it for you. Ashton's face had gone pale. Nova, wait.
No.
She stepped back as he moved closer. Her shoulder blades hit the wall. You don't get to decide I'm yours now because it's dramatic. Because it makes a good story for your pack. Because rejecting me privately wasn't enough. You needed to claim me publicly so everyone could watch you be magnanimous to the Wolfless Maid. That's not what this is. Cade's voice had an edge now, his alpha dominance bleeding through. The whole ballroom could feel it, that pressure in the air that made weaker wolves bare their throats. But Nova had no wolf to submit. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face, and stared him down. Then what is it? You feel the bond, fine. Your wolves want me, I understand. But you don't. Not really. Because if you did, you wouldn't have spent 3 months pretending I didn't exist. You wouldn't have planned this entire spectacle to choose someone else. You wouldn't have called me a mistake, a malfunction, something to be fixed by bonding with a proper omega. The crowd was breathing again now, whispers spreading like wildfire. Phones were up, recording. This was going to be everywhere by morning. The Blackwood triplets, most eligible alphas in North America, publicly rejected by a wolfless maid. Nova's former mother pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage and shame. You ungrateful little wretch. Do you have any idea what you're turning down? They're offering you everything. They're offering me scraps. Nova's eyes didn't leave Cade's. They're offering me what's left after they've satisfied everyone else.
The pack.
Their father. The whole werewolf world. And maybe, if I'm very good and very quiet and never ask for anything, they'll let me exist in the corners of their lives. You're being irrational. Riker's voice was cold, but his hands were clenched into fists. You're in shock. You don't understand what you're giving up. I understand perfectly. Nova pushed off from the wall. She was done cowering. Done making herself small. You want to know what it's like being wolfless? Everyone looks at you like you're broken. Like you're less than human because you're not quite wolf. And you start to believe it. You start to think maybe they're right. Maybe you are worthless. And then 3 alphas hire you, and you feel something for the first time in years, and you think, maybe I'm not broken. Maybe there's something in me worth wanting. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. But you don't want me. You want what your wolves are demanding. You want to scratch an itch, satisfy an instinct. And the moment it becomes inconvenient, the moment your pack questions it, or your father disapproves, or it affects your business empire, you'll regret this. You'll look at me and wish you'd chosen one of these perfect omegas who could have given you strong heirs and political alliances. And I refuse to spend my life watching you wish I was someone else. Ashton reached for her, and she jerked away. Don't. Please don't make this harder. You're our mate. His voice was raw. Desperate in a way she'd never heard from him. We were wrong. We were scared and stupid and wrong. But the bond is real. What we feel is real. What you feel is real right now. Nova swiped at her tears with the back of her hand. In this moment, when everyone's watching, when it's dramatic and intense. But what about tomorrow? Next week? Next year? What happens when the bond settles and you're stuck with a wolfless omega who can't shift, can't protect herself, can't give you the powerful children your pack expects? What happens when I'm just me? The ballroom had erupted into chaos now. Omegas were arguing with each other. Pack leaders were making calls. The cameras were capturing every second. This wasn't just a personal drama anymore. This was a political incident. The Blackwood brothers had publicly declared a Wolfless Omega as their mate, and she'd rejected them. It violated every social hierarchy their world was built on. Nova's sister Celeste pushed forward, her face full of malicious glee. This is perfect. You're finally getting what you deserve. Public humiliation. You think you're taking some moral stand? You're just proving what we all knew. You're not good enough for anyone. Something inside Nova snapped. She turned on Celeste with 7 years of suppressed rage in her eyes. You're right. I'm not good enough. Not for this family that threw me away. Not for this society that treats wolfless people like garbage. Not for 3 alphas who wanted me in secret but not in daylight. But you know what? I'd rather be alone and worthless than spend one more second begging people to see my value. She looked back at the brothers one last time. Cade's jaw was clenched, so tight, she thought it might break. Riker looked like he was calculating how to fix this, how to salvage the situation. And Ashton just looked devastated. I release you from this bond. Nova's voice carried across the silent ballroom. Whatever our wolves feel, whatever nature decided, I'm choosing differently. Find your perfect Omega. Build your empire. Forget about the maid you hired out of guilt or curiosity or whatever reason you thought was noble. She turned toward the servants' exit. Her legs were shaking so badly she didn't know if they'd carry her. But she took one step, then another. Cade's voice stopped her. If you walk out that door, we won't follow. Nova looked back over her shoulder. Good. That's exactly what I'm counting on. She walked out, through the kitchen where staff stood frozen in shock. Chapter 3. Nova made it 4 blocks before the pain hit. It started as a burn in her chest, right where her heart should be. Then it spread like liquid fire through her veins, down her arms, into her legs. She stumbled, caught herself against a brick wall, and tried to breathe through it. This was what happened when you rejected a mate bond. The wolf inside fought back, tried to force you to return, to complete what nature had designed. Except Nova had no wolf to fight her. The pain should have been unbearable, should have driven her to her knees, forced her to crawl back to the Sterling Tower and beg for forgiveness. That's what happened in every story she'd ever heard about rejected bonds. The Omega couldn't survive the separation. The pain literally drove them insane. But Nova just felt angry. The burn in her chest wasn't agony. It was rage. Pure, concentrated fury at every injustice she'd endured for 7 years. And underneath that rage, something else was stirring. Something that had been dormant so long she'd forgotten it existed. She pushed off the wall and kept moving. She had maybe an hour before the brothers came to their senses and sent people looking for her. Maybe less if Cade decided to track her scent. She needed to disappear. Really disappear. Not just leave Manhattan but vanish from the werewolf world entirely. Her tiny apartment in Queens was all she had. 1 room above a Chinese restaurant, rent paid week to week, everything she owned fitting into a single duffel bag. She'd learned to travel light. Learned that attachment was dangerous when you could be thrown out at any moment. She was shoving clothes into the bag when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up.
Nova Shane.
The voice on the other end was female, cultured, with an accent Nova couldn't place. You've just done something very interesting. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you for a long time. Someone who knows what you really are. Nova's blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Somewhere deep down, you've always known you weren't broken. You were dormant. And tonight, when you rejected 3 alpha bonds simultaneously, when you survived what should have killed you, you proved it. The woman's words wrapped around Nova's fear and squeezed. Proved what? That you're not wolfless at all. You're something the werewolf world hasn't seen in 300 years. And every pack in North America is about to start hunting you. Nova's hand tightened on the phone. That's insane. Is it? Tell me, Nova. Right now, at this exact moment, what do you feel? Pain from the rejected bonds? Weakness? The desperate need to return to your mates? Nova wanted to lie, but the truth was too strange to deny. I feel strong. Stronger than I've ever felt. That's because the bonds didn't break. They woke something up. Your wolf isn't missing, Nova. She's been sleeping, waiting, and she's about to emerge in a way that will terrify everyone who ever looked down on you. Who are you? My name is Mira. I run a sanctuary for special cases like yours. Wolves who don't fit into the traditional pack structure. I can offer you protection, answers, and training for what's coming. But you need to leave New York tonight.
Right now.
The Blackwood brothers aren't your biggest problem anymore. Then what is? Their father, Alpha Theron Blackwood, didn't build his empire on luck. He built it on secrets. And you, Nova, are a secret he's been searching for since the day you were born. He knew what you were before your own family did. That's why his sons hired you. That's why they kept you close. He was waiting for something to trigger your awakening. And tonight, in front of 1,000 witnesses, you gave him exactly what he needed. Nova's legs gave out. She sat down hard on her mattress, the phone pressed so tight to her ear it hurt. That doesn't make sense. If he knew, why didn't he just take me? Because he needed proof. He needed the bonds to attempt formation. He needed to see if you'd survive rejection. And now that you have, now that every pack leader in the country saw you walk away from 3 alpha mates without breaking, they all know. You're not just an Omega, Nova. You're a lunar catalyst. The term meant nothing to Nova. But the way Mira said it, with that mixture of awe and fear, made her stomach drop. What's a lunar catalyst? The rarest form of Omega in existence. Once in a generation, if that. Your kind doesn't just bond with one alpha. You can bond with entire packs. You can amplify their power, heal their wounds, stabilize their hierarchies. And you can control them. A lunar catalyst in the wrong hands could conquer territories, overthrow councils, start wars. In the right hands, they're the most powerful force in our world. I can't even shift.
Yet.
You can't shift yet. But when you do, when your wolf finally emerges, she won't be like anyone else's. She'll be something ancient, something pure, the kind of power that makes alphas submit. And Theron Blackwood wants to own that power. He's already making calls, already mobilizing his forces. You have maybe 6 hours before every mercenary and bounty hunter in the supernatural world is looking for you. Nova tried to process this. Tried to reconcile the idea that she wasn't broken but was instead the most valuable thing in their world. It felt like another cruel joke. Another way for the universe to make her life impossibly complicated. Why are you helping me? Because I was like you once. Different circumstances, but the same fundamental truth. I didn't fit. And someone helped me survive long enough to understand what I was. I'm paying that forward. There's a bus leaving Port Authority in 40 minutes. Route 73 to Portland.
Get on it.
When you arrive, someone will meet you. You'll know them when you see them.
How?
They'll call you by your real name. The one your mother gave you before your family decided you were worthless. Before they chose to forget what you were born to be. Nova's breath caught. She hadn't heard that name in 7 years. Her family had forbidden its use the day they threw her out. You know my real name? I know everything about you, Nova. Including what happened the night you were born. The reason your wolf went dormant. The sacrifice your grandmother made to hide you from people exactly like Theron Blackwood. She died keeping you safe. Don't let that sacrifice be for nothing. Get on that bus. The line went dead. Nova sat there, her packed duffel in one hand, phone in the other, trying to breathe. This was insane. All of it. Lunar catalyst. Ancient power. Her grandmother's sacrifice. It sounded like something from a fantasy novel, not her life. But the pain in her chest was real. The strength flooding her body was real. And the fear in her mother's eyes tonight, when Nova had rejected the Blackwood brothers, that had been real too. Not just disgust.
Fear.
They'd known. Her family had known what she was. And they'd hidden her by convincing everyone, including Nova herself, that she was nothing. She grabbed her duffel, her phone, and the envelope of cash she kept hidden in the floorboards for emergencies. $300. Everything she had. It would have to be enough. She was halfway down the stairs when she felt them. The brothers. Not physically present but there, in her mind, pulling at something deep inside her. The bonds hadn't broken. They were stretching, straining, but still intact. She could feel their panic, their confusion, their desperate need to find her. And underneath that, she felt their wolves. Not the men, but the beasts inside them. And those wolves weren't confused at all. They were howling in triumph. Because their mate hadn't rejected them. She'd just proven she was strong enough to claim them on her own terms. Nova ran faster. Down the stairs, out the back door, into the streets of Queens at midnight. She had 40 minutes to get to Port Authority. 40 minutes before her life changed forever. What she didn't know was that back at Sterling Tower, Kate had shifted and broken through a reinforced window. That Riker had locked down every exit in Manhattan. That Ashton was on the phone with every contact they had, calling in every favor, mobilizing a search that would span the entire eastern seaboard. And she definitely didn't know that in his penthouse office, Alpha Theron Blackwood was smiling as he watched security footage of Nova running through the streets. Because he'd been planning this for 23 years. Since the night an infant was born during a lunar eclipse, marked with symbols only the oldest wolves remembered. An infant whose grandmother had died screaming that they'd never find her, never use her, never break her. But Theron was patient. And now that Nova's power was awakening, now that the whole world had seen what she was, the real game could begin. The hunt was on. And Nova had no idea she was the prize everyone was willing to kill for. Chapter 4. Nova made it to Portland in 3 days. 3 days of buses and back roads and constantly looking over her shoulder. 3 days of feeling the bonds stretch tighter, like rubber bands about to snap. 3 days of something building inside her chest that felt like thunder before a storm. Helena's bookshop sat tucked between a coffee roaster and a vintage clothing store in the Pearl District. The windows were covered in protection sigils that most humans would mistake for decorative ironwork. Nova had met Helena 5 years ago, back when she was drifting through Portland looking for work. The old woman had given her tea, a meal, and the first kindness Nova had experienced since her family threw her out. She'd also told Nova something strange. Something Nova had dismissed at the time as the rambling of someone who'd lived too long and seen too much. She'd said, "Your wolf is sleeping, child. Not gone.
Sleeping.
And one day, someone will wake her up." Nova pushed open the shop door. The bell chimed. The scent of old books and lavender filled her lungs. And Helena looked up from behind the counter with eyes that had been waiting. "You came." The old woman moved faster than someone her age should be able to. She was in front of Nova in seconds, hands on her face, examining her like a doctor checking for injuries. "Good. We don't have much time." "Time for what?" "For me to tell you the truth before Theron Blackwood's hunters find you." Helena locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed, and pulled Nova toward the back room.
"Sit."
"Don't argue. Just sit."
Nova sat.
Her legs were shaking anyway. Helena disappeared into a back office and returned with a book. Ancient, leather-bound, pages yellowed with age. She set it on the table between them and opened it to a page marked with red ribbon. The illustration showed a wolf surrounded by silver light, standing beneath a full moon. And beneath it, text in a language Nova didn't recognize. "Can you read this?"
"No."
"Your grandmother could." She was one of the last who remembered the old tongue. Helena traced the symbols with one gnarled finger. "This is the prophecy of the moon blessed. It's been passed down for 3,000 years, hidden from most packs, known only to the keepers. I'm one of the last keepers alive." "Helena, I don't understand. You asked me once why you had no wolf. I told you she was sleeping. That was the truth, but not all of it." Helena's eyes met Nova's, and in them was a sorrow so deep it made Nova's chest ache. "You are moon-blessed, child. Born during a lunar eclipse, marked by the goddess herself. Once every 1,000 years, an Omega is born with the power to unite or destroy the entire werewolf world. That Omega is you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Nova tried to process them, tried to find the logic. That's impossible. I can't even shift. You can't shift because your wolf is too powerful to exist in this world without preparation. If she emerged before you were ready, before you understood what you were, the power would consume you. It would burn through your human body, like fire through paper. Your grandmother knew this. The night you were born, she performed a binding ritual. She locked your wolf away, deep inside you, until the day you were strong enough to contain her. My grandmother died when I was a baby. She died performing that ritual. Helena's voice cracked. She gave her life to protect you, because she knew what Theron Blackwood would do if he found you. Nova's hands were clenched, so tight her nails cut into her palms. The Blackwood brothers' father. What does he have to do with this? Everything. Helena flipped through the book to another page. This one showed a battlefield. Wolves tearing each other apart. Blood soaking the ground. 300 years ago, there was another moon-blessed Omega.
Her name was Selene.
And she fell in love with 3 Alpha brothers, just like you. Those brothers used her power to conquer half of Europe. They became unstoppable. Until Selene discovered what they were really doing. The people they were killing. The packs they were enslaving. She tried to stop them, and they killed her for it. Nova's stomach turned. What does that have to do with Theron? Theron Blackwood is descended from those 3 brothers. And he's spent his entire life searching for another moon blessed. Not to love. Not to cherish. But to control. To use. The same way his ancestors used Selene. Helena's hand covered Nova's. Your grandmother knew this. She tracked the Blackwood bloodline. She knew Theron had 3 sons. And she knew that one day, those sons would be drawn to you. The mate bond doesn't lie. But she hoped you'd be old enough, strong enough, wise enough to see the difference between true love and possession. They hired me. Nova's voice was barely a whisper. The brothers. 3 months ago. They gave me a job, a place to stay. Was that all planned? Theron arranged it. He's known about you since you were 16, since your family threw you out. He's been watching, waiting. He needed his sons to bond with you first. Needed to see if the legends were true. And tonight, when you rejected those bonds and survived, when you walked away without breaking, you proved it. You're the real thing. And now every pack in North America knows it too. The room felt like it was spinning. Nova gripped the edge of the table. So what happens now? I run forever? I hide? I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder?
No.
Helena's voice was steel. Now you learn what you are. Now you train. Now you prepare for the day your wolf emerges. Because when she does, you'll have a choice. The same choice Selene faced. You can use your power to unite the packs, bring peace, create something better than what exists now. Or you can let people like Theron use you.
Control you.
Turn you into a weapon. I don't want power. I just want to be left alone. I know, child. But that's not your destiny. You were marked by the goddess for a reason. And whether you accept it or not, you're about to become the most important person in the werewolf world. Nova stood up, so fast the chair fell backward. This is insane. All of it. I'm nobody. I scrub floors. I serve champagne. I don't have some ancient power. I don't have any power at all. Then explain how you survived rejecting 3 alpha mate bonds. Helena stood too, slower, but with a certainty that made Nova stop moving. Explain how you're getting stronger every day instead of weaker. Explain how you can feel them right now, can't you? The brothers. Even though you're 3,000 miles away, you can feel them. Nova couldn't deny it. The bonds were there, stretched impossibly thin but still intact. She could feel Cade's rage, Riker's calculation, Ashton's desperation. Could feel their wolves clawing to get to her. They're coming for you, Helena said quietly. And so is Theron. You have maybe 2 days before one of them finds you, so you have a choice to make. You can run again, keep running until someone catches you.
Or you can stay. Let me teach you.
Let me show you how to access the power your grandmother locked away. How to protect yourself. how to be what you were born to be. And if I don't want to be what I was born to be, then you die. Because Theron won't stop. He'll hunt you to the ends of the earth. And when he finds you, he'll break you. He'll use torture, manipulation, whatever it takes to make you submit. To make you into the weapon he's been dreaming of for decades. Is that really better than learning to fight back? Nova sank into another chair. Her whole body felt heavy, like gravity had doubled. I don't know how to fight. Then I'll teach you. I'm old, child, but I remember. I remember what the Keepers taught me. I remember the training Selene should have had before her powers emerged. And I'll make sure you're ready. Ready for what? For the moment your wolf wakes up. For the moment you have to choose between the brothers who claim to love you and the father who wants to own you. For the moment you become the most powerful Omega alive. Helena's eyes were fierce. And for the moment you decide what kind of world you want to create. Outside, the rain started. Portland rain, soft and persistent. Nova listened to it hit the windows and thought about everything she'd lost. Her family, her pack, her sense of self. And now Helena was telling her she'd never actually lost anything. That she'd been carrying power inside her all along, locked away, waiting. If I do this, Nova said slowly, if I stay and train and learn, what happens to the brothers? To the bonds? That depends on them. On whether they're their father's sons or something better. On whether they can love you for who you are or only for what you can give them. Helena sat down across from Nova. The mate bond will pull them here eventually. And when they arrive, you'll have to decide. Are they here because their wolves demand it? Or because they genuinely want you? How do I tell the difference? You'll know. When you're strong enough, when your wolf wakes up, you'll be able to feel the truth in their hearts. No lies. No manipulation. Just pure truth. And then you choose. Nova looked down at her hands. These same hands that had scrubbed floors and served drinks and been invisible for so long. Could they really hold the kind of power Helena described? Could she really be something more than the worthless, wolfless Omega everyone had told her she was? I'm scared, she whispered.
Good.
Helena reached across and squeezed her hand. Fear means you're taking this seriously. Fear means you won't be reckless. But don't let fear paralyze you. Your grandmother gave her life, so you could live. So you could choose. Honor that sacrifice. Become what she
knew you could be.
Nova took a shaky breath. Then another. Then she nodded. Okay.
Teach me.
Show me how to stop running and start fighting. Helena smiled. It was the saddest, proudest smile Nova had ever seen. We start tonight. Because in New York, 3 Alpha brothers just boarded a private jet. And their father is 2 steps behind them. The race is on, child. And everything you've been through so far, that was just the beginning.
Chapter 5.
But their father was closing in. And what he planned to do to Nova would break your heart. The brothers found her in 3 days. Helena's protections were strong, but the mate bond was stronger. It pulled them across the country like a compass pointing north. Inevitable. Unstoppable. Nova was in the back room of the bookshop, learning to meditate, to feel for the wolf locked inside her, when she felt them arrive. The bonds flared hot in her chest. Not painful, just present, demanding attention. Helena looked up from the ancient text she'd been translating. They're here. I know. Do you want me to send them away? Nova closed her eyes. She could feel them outside. Could feel Cade's determination, Riker's careful control, Ashton's barely contained desperation. Their wolves were howling. But underneath that animal need, she felt something else. Something that felt like regret. No, she said quietly. Let them in. Helena studied her for a long moment, then nodded. She went to unlock the door. Nova stayed where she was, sitting cross-legged on the floor, trying to look more composed than she felt. Her heart was hammering. Her hands were shaking. But she wasn't going to run anymore. They entered one at a time. Cade first because he was always first. The leader. The protector. He stopped 3 feet away from her, and she watched him struggle with every instinct he had. His wolf wanted to close that distance, to touch her, to confirm she was real and alive and his. But he held himself back. Nova. Just her name. But the way he said it, rough and broken, made her chest ache. Riker came next, his usual composure cracked around the edges. His eyes swept the room, cataloging exits and threats and vulnerabilities the way he always did. But they kept coming back to her face. Ashton was last. And when he saw her, really saw her, something in his expression shattered. You're okay. Thank God you're okay. Why are you here? Nova's voice was steadier than she expected. Because we're idiots, Cade said bluntly. Because we spent 3 months lying to ourselves about what you meant to us. Because we were so focused on what the pack would think, what our father would say, what the world would demand, that we forgot the only thing that mattered. Which is?
You.
Riker moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Just you. Not what you can give us. Not what you represent. You. I don't believe you. The words came out harder than Nova intended, but they were true. You wanted me when it was impossible, when rejecting me would have looked bad in front of 1,000 witnesses. But before that, you were planning to choose someone else. You're right. Ashton's admission was quiet.
Raw.
We were going to choose wrong. We were going to ignore the bond because we were scared. Scared of what people would say. Scared of disappointing our father. Scared of everything that made you different. And what changed? Nova stood up now, facing them across Helena's back room. What's different now? Everything. Cade's voice was fierce. We spent 3 days watching our world fall apart without you. Our wolves went feral. Our business collapsed. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except finding you. And not because we need you to function. Because we need to make this right. Because you deserve better than what we gave you. Pretty words, Nova said. But words are easy. Then let us prove it. Riker's intensity cut through the room. We're not asking you to come back. We're not asking you to accept the bond. We're asking for a chance. A real chance. To show you who we are when we're not being what everyone expects. To court you properly. To earn you. Nova wanted to say no. Wanted to protect herself. Every instinct she developed over 7 years of rejection was screaming at her to build walls, keep distance, never let them close enough to hurt her again. But Helena's words echoed in her mind. When your wolf wakes up, you'll be able to feel the truth in their hearts. She didn't have that power yet, but she could try. Could give them enough rope to either prove themselves or hang themselves with. 1 month, she heard herself say. You have 1 month to prove you mean what you're saying. But we do this my way. No gifts. No grand gestures. No trying to buy my affection. You want to court me? Then actually get to know me. See who I am when I'm not serving you champagne or scrubbing your floors. And at the end of that month, I'll decide if this bond is worth accepting. 1 month, Cade agreed immediately. Whatever you need. And you stay away from Helena. She's under my protection now. Nova glanced at the old woman, who was watching this exchange with knowing eyes. Nobody threatens her. Nobody pressures her. She's the only person who's been honest with me about what I am.
Deal.
Riker's word was a promise. We'll find a place nearby. We won't intrude. But Nova? Our father knows you're here. He's mobilizing resources. We need to establish protection protocols. Helena's shop has wards. Wards won't stop him. Ashton's face was grim. He's been planning this for decades. He has mercenaries, trackers, pack connections across the country. If he wants you, he'll come with everything he has. Then he'll find out I'm not as helpless as everyone thinks. Nova felt that strange strength rising in her again. That thunder before the storm feeling. I'm training. Learning what I am. And by the time Theron Blackwood comes for me, I'll be ready. The brothers exchanged glances. Some silent communication passing between them. Then train, Cade said. But let us help. Let us stand between you and him. Let us do what we should have done from the beginning. Protect our mate. I'm not your mate yet, Nova corrected. Right now, I'm just someone you're trying to earn. Remember that. They stayed in Portland, found a house 10 blocks from the bookshop, and for the next 2 weeks, they proved they were serious. They didn't bring her expensive gifts. They brought her coffee in the morning because they remembered she liked it black, with 1 sugar. They asked about her day. Really asked, really listened. They showed up at the bookshop not to pressure her, but to help Helena organize shelves, repair the broken heating system, fix the leaky roof. Cade started teaching Nova self-defense. Not werewolf combat, but practical human fighting. How to break holds. Where to strike to disable someone larger. He treated her like a capable student, not something fragile to be protected. Riker helped her enroll in online courses. She dropped out of high school at 16 when her family threw her out. He didn't judge that. Didn't act superior. Just quietly arranged for her to finish her diploma, helped her study for the GED exam, talked about college like it was something actually possible for her future. And Ashton made her laugh. He'd show up with bad jokes and silly stories and a lightness she'd forgotten could exist. He'd take her to food trucks and dive bars and places where nobody cared about pack hierarchy or bloodlines. Places where she could just be Nova, not the moon-blessed Omega or the Wolfless reject. They were trying, really trying. And despite every wall she'd built, Nova felt them crumbling. The moment that shattered her completely came 2 weeks into their courtship. Ashton convinced her to go to this upscale restaurant downtown. She'd resisted, uncomfortable with fancy places that reminded her of serving instead of being served. But he'd been persistent in that gentle way of his, promising it would be different this time. They were halfway through dinner when Nova saw them. Her family, her mother, father, and sister Celeste at a corner table with several pack officials. The kind of dinner designed to show status, to network, to maintain their position in the hierarchy Nova had been excised from. Her mother's eyes landed on Nova, swept over her, sitting there in a borrowed dress with one of the Blackwood brothers, and that familiar disgust twisted her features. Nova's appetite vanished. She put down her fork, suddenly feeling like that 16-year-old girl being told she was an embarrassment, a genetic failure, something to be hidden away. "We can leave," Ashton said quietly. He'd tracked her gaze, seen what she'd seen. "Say the word, and we're gone."
No.
Nova's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm tired of running from them." But her mother wasn't content to just stare. She rose from her table, wine glass in hand, and approached with Celeste trailing behind. That same superior smile Nova remembered from childhood.
Well.
"Look at this." Her mother's voice carried across the restaurant. Other diners turned to watch. "My wolfless daughter, playing dress-up. Tell me, Nova, does he know what you are? Or are you lying about that too?" Nova's hands clenched in her lap. Old shame, old pain, threatening to swallow her whole. But Ashton stood. Slowly, deliberately. And when he looked at Nova's mother, his eyes held something that made the older woman take a step back. "This woman," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of that restaurant, "is the bravest, strongest, most valuable person I've ever met. She survived being thrown away by people who should have protected her. She built a life from nothing. She taught me that worth isn't measured by power or bloodlines, or whether you can shift. It's measured by character, by integrity, by the courage to stand up even when the whole world tells you to stay down." He turned to look at Nova, and his eyes were blazing. "Nova has more character in her little finger than this entire room combined. And the fact that you couldn't see that you threw away your own daughter because she didn't fit your narrow definition of valuable, that's your failure, not hers. She was never the problem. You were." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Nova's mother stood there, red-faced, humiliated in front of her peers. Celeste looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. And Nova felt something break open in her chest. Not pain, relief. Someone had finally said the words she'd needed to hear for 7 years. Someone had finally stood up for her, seen her value, believed in her. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. Ashton sat back down, took her hand across the table, and spoke so quietly only she could hear. I'm sorry it took us so long to see it, but I see you now, and I'm not looking away again. Nova's mother left the restaurant, took her whole party with her, and Nova didn't watch them go. She was too busy looking at Ashton, at this man who just defended her with a ferocity that made her believe maybe, just maybe, this bond could be real. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me for basic decency. Thank me by giving us a chance. A real chance. Please. Nova squeezed his hand. Okay. That night's back at the bookshop, Helena was waiting with worry etched into every line of her face. Theron's coming, she said without preamble. I felt the ward's pulse. He's bringing a force. Tomorrow night, maybe the night after. He's not going to ask nicely, Nova. He's going to take you. Nova felt her new courage waver. What do I do? You accelerate the timeline. I was going to spend months preparing you, but we don't have months. We have days. Maybe hours. So tonight, we wake your wolf up. And we pray she's strong enough to protect you from what's coming. Chapter 6. The blade came down. And Nova's eyes exploded with silver light. But we need to back up. Because what happened in the 6 hours before that moment will haunt you. Helena's ritual started at midnight. She cleared the back room of the bookshop, drawn symbols on the floor in chalk and salt, and something that looked like blood. Ancient symbols that predated written language. Nova sat in the center of the circle, cross-legged, trying not to think about what could go wrong. This is going to hurt, Helena warned. Your grandmother locked your wolf away with powerful magic. Breaking that lock means breaking through layers of protection that have kept you safe for 23 years. Your body will fight it. Your mind will fight it. But you have to push through. You have to want your wolf more than you want safety. I'm ready.
No, child.
You're not. But we're out of time. Helena began chanting in that old tongue. The symbols on the floor started to glow. And Nova felt something shift inside her chest.
Deep.
Primal. Like a door she'd never known existed was beginning to crack open. The pain hit like lightning. Every nerve in her body caught fire. She screamed. Couldn't help it. It felt like her bones were breaking and reforming, like her skin was being torn apart from the inside. This wasn't a normal shift. This was something being born that had been dormant for too long. Through the pain, she felt her. Her wolf.
Not weak.
Not broken. Enormous. Ancient. Furious at being caged for so long. And then the window exploded. Men in tactical gear poured through.
6 of them.
Moving with military precision. Helena threw up her hands, trying to strengthen the wards, but they had something that cut through magic like it was paper. Some kind of tech that shouldn't exist in the werewolf world. Nova tried to move, tried to fight, but the ritual had left her weak. Vulnerable. One of the men jabbed something into her neck. A syringe. Wolfsbane and something else. Something that made the world go dark and soft around the edges. The last thing she saw was Helena being thrown against the wall. The old woman's eyes meeting hers with a message. Don't give up. Your wolf is coming.
Hold on.
Then nothing. Nova woke in a basement. Concrete walls. No windows. The air smelled like mold and fear and old blood. She was chained to a chair with silver. Real silver that burned against her wrists and ankles. Her head was pounding. Her body felt like it had been through a war. And standing in front of her was a man who looked like an older version of Cade. Same sharp features. Same commanding presence. But where Cade's eyes held warmth underneath the dominance, this man's eyes held nothing but cold calculation. You're awake. Good. Theron Blackwood circled her like a predator studying prey. I was worried they'd given you too much. We need you conscious for this conversation. Where am I? My compound. About 40 miles outside Portland. Very private. Very secure. Your mates won't find you here. He said mates like it was a curse word. Though I'm sure they're trying. My sons have always been too sentimental. Nova tested the chains. They didn't budge. The silver was sapping her strength, what little she had after the interrupted ritual. What do you want? I want to show you something. Theron pressed a button on the wall. A screen lowered, flickered to life. Security footage. Multiple angles of the bookshop from tonight. Showing the ritual. Showing the moment her eyes had started to glow silver. Showing the exact instant her wolf had begun to wake. Do you know what you are? Helena told me. Helena. Theron's laugh was bitter. That old fool has been interfering in my business for 30 years. She helped the last moon-blessed escape me. Did she tell you that? She helped her run, hide, build a life. And that Omega became so powerful that she destroyed 3 packs before I finally tracked her down. You killed her. I had to. She was too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Theron moved closer, grabbed Nova's chin, forced her to look at him. My own mate was moon-blessed. Did my sons tell you that? Probably not. They don't know. Nobody knows except me and the few people I had to eliminate to keep the secret. Nova's blood ran cold. What happened to her? She awakened. And for a brief, beautiful moment, we had everything. Power. Unity. She could amplify my strength tenfold. We could have ruled the entire werewolf world. His grip tightened. But then she realized what that power meant. That she didn't have to submit to me. Didn't have to follow pack law. Didn't have to do anything she didn't want to do.
And she left.
Rejected our bond. Chose freedom over everything we'd built together. Good for her, Nova spat. Theron backhanded her. The force of it snapped her head to the side. Blood filled her mouth. She humiliated me. Made me look weak. Made me a laughingstock among alphas who'd once feared my name. So, I made a choice. If I couldn't control moon-blessed power, nobody would. I've spent 3 decades hunting down every Omega born during a lunar eclipse. Every one with the markers. The birthmarks. The signs. And I've killed them all before they could awaken and threaten the natural order. The natural order where alphas control everything. Yes.
Nos jam.
No hesitation. Alphas are meant to lead. Omegas are meant to follow. That's how our world survives. But moon-blessed Omegas disrupt that balance. They make Omegas equal to alphas. They give Omegas the power to choose, to refuse, to rebel. And I won't let that happen again. Nova struggled against the chains. Your sons won't let you do this. My sons are weak. They've been compromised by the mate bond. They think they love you, but what they love is the power they sense in you. The potential. Once you're gone, they'll grieve for a few months, and then they'll thank me. They'll find proper mates. Build proper lives. Continue the Blackwood legacy the right way. He pulled out a knife. Silver blade with symbols etched into the metal. The same symbols Helena had drawn on the floor. This is a moon blade, forged specifically to kill your kind. It cuts through magic, through bonds, through every protection you might have. One strike through the heart, and you're gone.
No transformation.
No last-minute power surge. Just death. The door burst open. Guards dragged someone in. Nova's heart stopped. It was Ashton. Bloodied. Beaten. Barely conscious. They threw him on the floor in front of her chair. Found him trying to breach the north perimeter. 1 guard reported. The other 2 are still out there. Should we bring them in?
No.
Theron smiled. Let them come. Let them watch. Ashton lifted his head. When he saw Nova chained, when he saw the knife in his father's hand, something feral came into his eyes. Don't.
Please.
She hasn't done anything wrong. She exists. That's enough. Theron pressed the blade against Nova's throat. She felt it burn. Felt her skin sizzle where the silver touched. I'm going to kill her. And you're going to watch. And then you're going to go back to New York and forget this ever happened. I'll never forget her. You will. Werewolves are resilient. You'll move on. The west wall exploded. Literally exploded. Concrete and rebar flying everywhere. And through the smoke and dust came Cade and Riker. Their eyes were completely black. Their wolves were in control. They'd torn through Theron's compound like it was made of tissue paper. Theron didn't flinch. He pressed the blade harder against Nova's throat. Drew blood. One more step, and I cut her open. Cade froze. Riker stopped, but the rage coming off them was like a physical force. The guards in the room backed away. Even Theron's hand trembled slightly. You're going to let her go. Cade's voice wasn't human anymore. It was all wolf, all alpha, all fury. Right now. Or what? You'll kill me? Your own father? Theron laughed. You don't have it in you. None of you do. You're too soft, too modern, too infected with human morality. Try me, Cade growled. But Riker moved first. Not toward Theron. Toward the floor. He dropped to his knees in front of his father. Hands spread. Throat exposed. The ultimate submission in werewolf culture. Please, Riker said. And this man who never begged, who never showed weakness, who built his identity on control and calculation, was openly crying. Please don't kill her. Take me instead. I'm the eldest. I'm the heir.
Kill me.
But let her live. Ashton dragged himself up. Fell to his knees beside Riker. Kill me too. I'm nothing without her. A world where she doesn't exist isn't worth living in. And Cade, the strongest of them, the one who never submitted to anyone, dropped to his knees. She's everything. Everything.
Kill us.
All three of us. But let her go. Please. Nova's tears mixed with the blood on her throat. These men, these impossible, infuriating, beautiful men were offering their lives for hers. After everything. After all the pain and rejection and complications. They were choosing her. Theron looked at his sons kneeling before him. At the weakness he'd always feared would infect them. You're pathetic. All of you. You'd throw away the Blackwood legacy for one wolfless Omega. She's not wolfless, Cade said quietly. She's moon-blessed. And she's worth more than your entire legacy. Then you'll all die together. Theron raised the moon blade. Not toward Nova now. Toward his own sons. I'll start fresh. New heirs. A new bloodline. One that isn't corrupted by this insanity. The blade came down toward Cade's exposed neck. And Nova felt something shatter inside her. Not break. Shatter. Like a dam that had held back an ocean for 23 years suddenly giving way. Power exploded out of her. Pure silver light that blasted through the chains like they were nothing. That threw Theron backward into the concrete wall hard enough to crack it. That filled the entire basement with a pressure so intense the guards collapsed, unable to breathe. Nova stood. The chains fell away, and her eyes were blazing silver fire. Her wolf had arrived, and she was done being a victim.
Wait.
Before I tell you what happens next, if you're not subscribed, you're about to make the biggest mistake. Because I release stories like this every single week, and if you don't subscribe, you'll miss them. The algorithm won't show you my videos. You'll lose access to these emotional journeys that make you feel something real in this crazy world. So subscribe right now.
Seriously. Hit that button.
And if you don't want to subscribe, tell me why in the comments. I genuinely want to understand what's holding you back. Also, drop your country in the comments. Where are my story lovers watching from? I want to see you. I want to know where in the world people are feeling these characters the way I feel them. Now let's get back to Nova, because what she does next will change everything. Chapter 7. The transformation wasn't like anything the werewolf world had seen in 300 years. Nova's body erupted with silver light, so bright everyone in that basement had to look away. The power radiating from her wasn't just physical. It was metaphysical. It rewrote the air itself, made reality bend around her like she was the center of gravity, and everything else was just orbiting. When the light dimmed enough to see, Nova was no longer human. Her wolf was massive. Easily twice the size of an alpha wolf. Her fur was pure silver, glowing with moonlight that seemed to come from within. Her eyes burned with that same silver fire, ancient and aware and utterly furious. Around her, a barrier of pure energy shimmered into existence, wrapping around the Triplet brothers like a shield made of starlight. Theron pushed himself up from where he'd been thrown. Blood ran from his nose. His eyes went wide with something Nova had never seen in him before.
Fear.
Impossible, he whispered. You're not fully awakened. The ritual was interrupted. You shouldn't be able to shift yet.
Nova's wolf spuka.
And when she did, her voice echoed in everyone's mind simultaneously. Not just sound, but thought. Pure communication that bypassed language entirely. You tried to kill them. My mates. The ones I've chosen. Did you really think I would stay dormant for that? You're untrained. Uncontrolled. You'll burn yourself out in minutes. But Theron was backing up now.
Calculating.
Looking for exits. His guards had already fled. Smart enough to recognize a predator beyond their ability to fight. Maybe. Or maybe I'm exactly what I was always meant to be. What your mate was before you tried to break her. Before you convinced yourself that a powerful female was a threat instead of a gift. She destroyed everything we'd built.
No.
Nova's wolf moved forward. Each step deliberate. Controlled. You destroyed it by trying to cage her. By treating her power as something to own instead of something to respect. And then you spent 30 years murdering innocent women because your ego couldn't survive being left. Behind her, the brothers were struggling to their feet. Cade's eyes were locked on Nova's wolf form with a mixture of awe and terror. Riker looked like he was trying to process something his analytical mind couldn't categorize. And Ashton just looked relieved. Like even if he died in the next 5 minutes, seeing her alive and powerful was enough. Nova's wolf turned her attention to them briefly. The barrier around them pulsed, and she felt their injuries healing. Felt their strength returning. The mate bond was active now, fully formed, and it flowed both ways. She could give them power just as easily as they could anchor her. Don't. Theron's voice cracked. Don't heal them. They're traitors to their own kind. They chose an Omega over pack loyalty. They chose love over fear. Nova's attention snapped back to him. They chose growth over stagnation. They chose me when it cost them everything. What have you ever chosen except your own ego? Theron shifted. His wolf was huge, black as midnight, alpha powerful. He lunged at Nova with speed that should have been impossible to counter. But Nova was faster. She didn't just dodge. She moved through space like she could bend it. One moment Theron was airborne, jaws open, going for her throat. The next moment she was behind him, and he was slamming into the concrete wall hard enough to leave a crater. He scrambled up, shook himself, lunged again. Nova didn't even move this time. She just raised her power like a wall, and Theron hit it with the force of his own momentum. The impact sent him sprawling backward, dazed, bleeding from a dozen wounds. You killed moon-blessed Omegas because you feared powerful women. Nova's voice in his head was cold now. Clinical. Because your ego couldn't handle your mate's strength. Because you'd rather murder potential than admit you were wrong about who deserved power. That's not strength. That's not leadership. That's cowardice wrapped in authority. I built an empire. Theron was up again, circling, looking for an opening. I secured our future. I maintained order. You built a prison. Nova matched his movements. And you called it civilization. You maintained control by eliminating anyone who threatened your worldview. But control isn't the same as leadership. Fear isn't the same as respect. And power without wisdom is just violence with a title. Theron shifted back to human form. Stood there naked and bloodied and desperate. You could rule everything. With your power and my experience, we could reshape the werewolf world.
Think about it.
No more weak alphas. No more chaotic omegas. True order. Is that what you told your mate? Before she left, Nova shifted back too. Stood before him in human form, still glowing with that silver light. That if she just submitted to your vision, everything would be perfect? She was foolish. She chose freedom over greatness. She chose herself over your delusions.
Nova's voice was sad now.
Almost pitying. And you've spent 30 years punishing every woman who reminded you of that choice. Killing them before they could do what she did. Before they could prove that omegas don't need alphas to give them permission to be powerful. Then kill me. Theron spread his arms. If you're so righteous, if you're so different, prove it. Kill me like I killed them. And Nova realized she was standing at the exact crossroads Selene had faced 300 years ago. The moment where power met choice. Where she could either become what Theron had made her, or become something better. I could kill you. Easily. Nova's power flared, just to prove the point. Theron gasped, driven to his knees by the pressure. But I choose mercy. Not because you deserve it. Because I refuse to let your fear turn me into you. I refuse to let your violence define who I become. She reached out with her power. Not to harm. To transform. Silver energy wrapped around Theron like chains made of moonlight. And where it touched him, something fundamental changed. His alpha presence vanished. Just gone. Like a light switching off. The dominance, the power, the ability to command through will alone. All of it stripped away in seconds. Theron's eyes went wide with horror. What did you do? I took your alpha title. Nova's voice was merciless now. Not through challenge. Not through combat. Through pure moon-blessed authority. You're beta now. Maybe omega. I'm not sure. But you'll never lead a pack again. You'll never command loyalty through power. If you want respect, you'll have to earn it the way the rest of us do. Through character. Through actions. Through being worthy of it.
No.
Theron was clutching at his chest, at the space where his alpha wolf had been. No, you can't. That's not possible. Everything's possible for me. That's what you were so afraid of. Nova turned away from him. Walked toward the brothers who were staring at her like they'd never seen her before. Because they hadn't. Not really. Because I don't follow your rules. I don't accept your limitations. I am exactly what my grandmother died to protect. What your mate chose freedom to preserve. I am moon-blessed. And I decide who deserves power in my presence. Behind her, Theron collapsed. Broken. Everything he'd built his identity on was gone. He was still alive. Still conscious. But the man he'd been had ceased to exist. Nova reached the brothers. They were still on their knees, looking up at her with expressions she couldn't quite read.
Awe. Fear. Love.
All mixed together. You can stand up, she said softly, back in her own voice now, human and uncertain despite the power still glowing under her skin. I'm not going to hurt you. We know. Cade stood first.
Slowly.
Like he was approaching something sacred.
Nova.
What you just did was necessary. She cut him off. Her legs were shaking now. The adrenaline wearing off. The reality of what had happened sinking in. He was going to kill you. All of you. I couldn't let that happen. Riker stood next. His analytical mind was working overtime. She could feel it through the bond. You stripped an alpha of his title without a challenge. That's never been done. Not in recorded history. Maybe it should have been. Nova's voice was sharper than she intended. Maybe alphas have gotten away with too much for too long because nobody had the power to stop them. Ashton was last to stand. And when he looked at her, his eyes were full of something that made her chest ache. You saved us. You could have run. Could have used your power to escape in. Dee never looked back. But you saved us. Of course I did. Nova felt tears building. The emotions she'd been suppressing breaking through. You offered your lives for mine. You knelt before the man you feared most and begged him to spare me. Did you think I'd just let him kill you after that? We didn't know what you'd do. Cade's honesty was brutal. We just knew we couldn't watch him hurt you. Whatever happened after that didn't matter. Nova looked at these three men. These alphas who'd been raised to believe in hierarchy and dominance and power through force. Who'd been taught by a monster that strength meant control. And they'd rejected all of it. For her. Despite what it cost them. The mate bond is complete, she said quietly. I can feel it. All three of you.
Connected to me.
Connected to each other, through me. Do you want that? Yes. 3 voices. Simultaneous. Absolute. Even knowing what I am? What I can do? Ashton stepped closer. Close enough to touch, but not touching yet. Giving her space. Especially knowing what you are. Nova, you're magnificent. You're terrifying and powerful and everything we don't deserve. But if you'll have us, if you'll let us stand beside you instead of trying to control you, we'll spend the rest of our lives proving we're worthy of that gift. Nova's power flared. Not aggressive. Just present. A reminder of what existed between them now. I won't submit. I won't follow pack hierarchy. I won't be anyone's perfect Omega. We don't want you to be. Riker's voice was firm. We want you exactly as you are. Powerful. Independent. Choosing us because you want and not because biology demands it. And if I make decisions you don't like, if my power threatens your leadership, then we adapt. Cade's smile was crooked.
Genuine.
We learn to lead differently. We build something new together. Because you're right. The old way is broken. And maybe it takes someone like you to show us how to fix it. Nova looked at them. Really looked. Saw three men who'd been shaped by violence and fear trying to become something better. Three alphas who'd chosen love over legacy. Three mates who'd offered their lives for hers without hesitation. And she made her choice. She stepped forward and kissed Cade first. Let him feel through the bond that she meant it, that she chose him. Then Riker, whose careful control shattered the moment her lips touched his. Then Ashton, who kissed her back like she was air and he'd been drowning. I choose all of you, she whispered against Ashton's mouth. My mates. My partners. My equals. But if any of you ever try to control me, ever make me feel less than I am, I will leave. And next time, I won't come back. Understood, Cade said. Completely, Riker agreed. We'll spend our lives earning your trust, Ashton promised. Every single day. Nova stepped back, looked around the destroyed basement, at Theron curled up in the corner, powerless and broken, at the evidence of her strength scattered everywhere. We need to leave. Helena will be worried, and there's going to be fallout from this. Every pack in the country saw me reject the bonds on that live stream. Now they're going to hear I awakened, that I stripped an alpha of his title. They'll either fear me or hunt me. Let them try. Cade's voice was steel. Anyone who wants to hurt you goes through us first. And through me, Nova corrected. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not pretending to be weak. If the werewolf world can't handle a powerful Omega, then the werewolf world needs to change. She walked toward the exit. Her mates fell into step beside her. Not behind. Beside. Equals. Partners. And behind them, Theron watched them go. Watched his sons choose a new path. Watched everything he'd built crumble. He'd spent 30 years trying to prevent this exact moment. Trying to keep Omegas powerless. Trying to maintain an order built on fear. But Nova was right. Everything was possible for her. And the world was about to learn what that meant. Chapter 8. They returned to Portland first. To Helena's bookshop, where the old woman was waiting with tears streaming down her face and arms open wide. I felt it, Helena whispered as she held Nova. Felt your wolf wake up. Felt the power surge across 3 states. Your grandmother would be so proud. She died for this. Nova's voice broke. Died so I could have this moment. She died so you could choose. And you chose perfectly. Helena pulled back, looked at the 3 brothers standing respectfully behind Nova. And you 3, you finally figured it out. We're slow learners, Cade admitted. But we get there eventually. They stayed in Portland for 2 weeks. Long enough for Nova to train with Helena, to learn control, to understand the depths of what her power could do. Long enough for the brothers to prove, day after day, that they meant every word they'd said in that basement. But Manhattan was calling. Because what had happened in Theron's compound hadn't stayed secret. The guards who'd fled had talked. Pack leaders across the country had heard about the moon-blessed Omega who'd stripped an alpha of his title. About the triplet Blackwood brothers who'd submitted to save their mate. The werewolf world was in chaos. Some packs were terrified. Others were hopeful. All of them wanted answers. Nova stood in the penthouse of Sterling Tower, looking out over Manhattan at sunset, and tried to process how much had changed in 1 month. From invisible Maid to the most talked about Omega in North America. From powerless to so powerful that alphas were afraid to meet her eyes. She heard them before they entered. Could feel them through the bond that connected the four of them now.
Complete.
Unbreakable. Different than anything their world had seen before. Cade came to stand beside her at the window. Didn't touch. Just stood there, solid and present. You don't have to do this. The council meeting tomorrow. You don't owe them anything. I know. Nova glanced at him. But hiding won't change what I am. And if I don't face them now on my terms, they'll never stop trying to control the narrative. Riker entered with tablets and documents. Always prepared. I've compiled everything. Historical precedent, legal frameworks, potential challenges. If you're going to propose new laws, we need to be ready for every argument they'll throw at you. Let them argue. Nova's voice was calm. I'm not asking permission. I'm informing them how things are going to be. Ashton came last, carrying mugs of tea. He pressed one into Nova's hands, kissed her temple. You're terrifying when you're in leader mode. It's incredibly attractive. She laughed. Actually laughed. A month ago, she couldn't have imagined laughing in this penthouse. Couldn't have imagined standing here as an equal instead of a servant. I'm serious, though. Tomorrow changes everything. Once I walk into that council chamber, there's no going back. They'll either accept what I am or they'll try to eliminate me. And if they choose elimination, people will die. Then they'll die. Cade's voice was flat. Final. We're not losing you again. Ever. I'm not talking about me dying. Nova turned to face all three of them. I'm talking about them. If the council decides I'm a threat, if they send hunters or mercenaries or armies, I'll defend myself. And my power doesn't do mercy when I'm under attack. I could kill hundreds, thousands. I need you to understand that. Need you to be okay with that. The brothers exchanged glances. Some silent communication passing between them. We understand, Riker said carefully. And we'll stand with you regardless. But Nova, is that who you want to be? The Omega who rules through fear the same way Theron did. His words hit like a physical blow.
Because he was right.
Because she'd been so focused on not being controlled that she'd started thinking like a tyrant. No, she whispered. That's not who I want to be. Then tomorrow you show them something different. Ashton set his mug down, moved closer. You show them that power doesn't have to mean violence. That strength can coexist with compassion. That you're offering them a choice, not an ultimatum. And if they refuse, then we build something new. Cade's hand found hers. A pack that does things differently. A community where worth isn't measured by power. Where Omegas like you aren't discarded for being different. We start small if we have to, but we start. Nova looked at these three men. These alphas who'd been raised in violence and fear, but were choosing to be different. Who'd risked everything for her. Who were offering to walk away from their entire world if that world couldn't accept her. I love you. The words came out soft. Honest. All three of you. And not because of the bond. Because of this. Because you see me and you're not afraid. Because you're willing to build something better instead of defending something broken. Cade's hand tightened on hers. We love you too. Have since the moment you walked into this tower, even if we were too stupid to admit it. I wasn't stupid, Ashton protested. I was terrified. There's a difference. You were both stupid and terrified, Riker said. I was at least analytical about my stupidity. Nova laughed again.
These men.
These impossible, frustrating, perfect men. Tomorrow, I need you to let me do this alone. I need to walk into that council chamber without alpha protection. Without anyone thinking you're controlling me or influencing me.
Can you do that?
The pain on their faces was immediate. The bond hummed with their instinctive rejection of the idea. That's not a request, Nova said gently. That's me telling you what needs to happen. I need the council to see me as independent, as powerful in my own right. If you're standing behind me, They'll assume I'm just another Omega being used by alphas. What if they attack you? Cade's jaw was clenched so tight she worried about his teeth. Then I defend myself. And you trust that I can. Nova met his eyes. You said you wanted to stand beside me as equals. Equals trust each other. So trust me. The silence stretched. She could feel them fighting every protective instinct they had. Fighting the alpha need to shield their mate. Fighting their fear of losing her. Okay, Cade finally said. We'll stay outside. But if we hear anything that sounds like a threat, you wait. Because I can handle myself. Nova softened her voice. I know this is hard. I know every part of you is screaming to protect me. But this is important. I need to do this myself. They spent that night together. Not claiming the bond yet, though they all felt the pull toward it. Tomorrow was too important. Tomorrow, Nova needed to be focused, centered, fully in control of her power. The claiming could wait, but they held each other. Talked until dawn about what kind of world they wanted to build. What laws needed to change. What traditions needed to die. How to honor the past while creating something better for the future. And when morning came, Nova dressed in a simple gray dress. Not a maid's uniform. Not designer fashion. Just something that said she was exactly who she'd always been. Someone who'd survived by being overlooked, who'd built strength in the shadows, who refused to perform for anyone's expectations. The Werewolf Council met in a converted cathedral in downtown Manhattan. Massive stone building that had once been a place of worship and was now a place of power. Every major pack leader in North America was there. Alphas who controlled territories spanning thousands of miles. Betas who managed the day-to-day operations of pack life. And Omegas, though they were scarce, relegated to the back rows like afterthoughts. Nova walked in alone. The brothers stayed outside, though she could feel their anxiety, through the bond like a living thing. Every eye in that cathedral turned to her. The whispers started immediately. Moon-blessed. Stripped Theron Blackwood. Bonded to triplets. Dangerous. Unprecedented.
Threat.
Nova walked down the center aisle with her head high. Didn't hurry.
Didn't apologize for existing.
Just walked until she reached the front where the council elders sat on an elevated platform. Alpha Marcus Steele spoke first. He was ancient, one of the oldest living werewolves, his authority earned through centuries of survival.
Nova Shing.
You've been summoned to explain your actions against Alpha Theron Blackwood. To answer for the unprecedented use of moon-blessed power. To justify your existence in a world that has spent 300 years ensuring your kind never awakened. I'm not here to justify anything. Nova's voice carried through the cathedral without her raising it. I'm here to inform you of changes. To tell you how things are going to be from now on. And to offer you a choice. The chamber erupted. Alphas shouting. Betas protesting. Even the Omegas in the back looked shocked that someone would speak to the council this way. Marcus raised his hand. Silence fell. You understand you're addressing the highest authority in the werewolf world. I understand I'm addressing a council that has enabled abuse for generations. That has allowed Omegas to be discarded, brutalized, treated as property. That has permitted alphas like Theron Blackwood to hunt and murder my kind for decades without consequence. Nova's eyes blazed silver. Just enough to make her point. So no. I don't recognize your authority. I recognize your power. But power and legitimacy aren't the same thing. An alpha from the Southern Territories stood. You dare. I dare. Nova cut him off. Because I'm the first moon-blessed in 300 years who survived long enough to claim her power. Because I'm bonded to 3 alphas who chose love over legacy. Because I stripped Theron Blackwood of everything he'd built on fear and murder.
So yes, I dare.
And you're going to listen. Marcus leaned forward. His eyes were sharp. Calculating.
Then speak.
We're listening. Wolfless werewolves will no longer be discarded. Any pack that throws out a member for failing to shift will lose council recognition. Nova's voice was steel. Omegas will have equal representation on this council.
Equal voting rights.
Equal say in laws that govern our world. The hierarchy that places alphas above everyone else ends today. The cathedral exploded again. This time Marcus didn't silence them. He let the chaos build. Let Nova feel the weight of hundreds of years of tradition pushing back against her. When it finally quieted, he spoke. You're proposing we dismantle our entire social structure. Everything we've built. Everything that has kept us stable for millennia.
I'm proposing we evolve.
Or, I'm proposing I leave and build something better. Your choice. Nova didn't flinch. Because I don't need you. I don't need this council. I don't need pack structure or hierarchy or any of it. I can walk out of here right now and live my life. But you need to understand something. Every wolfless omega you've discarded, every moon blessed you've killed, every female you've silenced, they were all potential. Wasted potential. And if you keep wasting it, someone else will gather it up. Someone who doesn't have my restraint. Someone who remembers being thrown away and wants revenge instead of reform. The threat hung in the air. Not a threat against them. A warning about what could come after. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled. Your grandmother would be proud. She fought us too, you know. Before you were born. Before she went into hiding. She stood exactly where you're standing and told us we were fools for fearing strong omegas. We ignored her, and she spent the rest of her life ensuring we'd have to face this moment anyway. Nova's breath caught. You knew her? Everyone on this council knew her. She was magnificent. Terrifying. Much like you. Marcus stood. And she was right. We were fools. We've been fools for 300 years. But changing centuries of tradition in one conversation? That requires more than one omega, no matter how powerful, making demands. Then what do you propose? A trial period. 6 months. You establish your reforms in the Blackwood territory. Prove they work. Show us that equality doesn't mean chaos. And if you succeed, we'll expand them, territory by territory. Until either the whole world changes or we admit we were too broken to save. Marcus's eyes gleamed. But Nova? If you fail, if your reforms lead to pack violence or territorial wars or omega uprisings that destabilize our world, we reserve the right to end this experiment. Permanently. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A crack in the wall instead of the wall coming down. Nova looked around that cathedral. At the faces watching her. Some hopeful, some hostile, most just uncertain. 6 months, she agreed. But understand this. I'm not trying these reforms on your terms. I'm implementing them on mine. And if anyone tries to sabotage them, if any alpha decides to test me, they'll learn exactly what moon-blessed power looks like when it's done being patient. She turned and walked back down that aisle. Out of the cathedral. Into the Manhattan morning where 3 alphas were waiting with expressions that said they'd heard every word through the bond. You did it, Ashton breathed. You actually did it. I started it, Nova corrected. Now comes the hard part, actually making it work. Then we make it work. Cade's hand found hers. Together. 6 months later, Nova stood on that same cathedral stage. But this time she wasn't alone. Riker stood beside her, presenting statistical evidence that omega equality had strengthened their territory, not weakened it. Ashton was in the crowd, coordinating with other packs who wanted to implement similar reforms. And Cade was leading security, ensuring that no one disrupted what had become a historical moment. The council voted. Not unanimously, not easily, but they voted. And the werewolf world changed. Nova left the cathedral that night with her 3 mates beside her. Not behind her. Not in front of her. Beside her. Equals. Partners. Everything she'd never thought she could have. They're going to write stories about you, Riker said. About the moon-blessed Omega who reformed the werewolf world. They'll get it wrong, Nova said. They'll make me either a saint or a monster. When really I was just someone who refused to accept that worthless was the same as powerless. So, what's the real story? Ashton asked. Nova thought about it. About the girl who'd been thrown away at 16. About the maid who'd been invisible for 3 years. About the Omega who'd rejected 3 alpha bonds in front of 1,000 witnesses. About the Moonblessed who'd stripped an alpha of his title and offered mercy instead of vengeance. The real story, she said slowly, is that 1,000 Omegas competed for the attention of 3 alpha billionaires. But those alphas only ever wanted one woman, the worthless Maid, who taught them what real love looks like, who showed them that strength isn't about dominance. It's about choosing to be better than what you were raised to be. And that's a love worth fighting for. Cade pulled her close, kissed her like he had all the time in the world. That's a good story. It's our story, Nova corrected. And it's just getting started. They walked home through Manhattan streets. For people who'd found each other against impossible odds. Who'd built something new the ruins of something broken. Who'd proven that sometimes the people the world throws away are exactly the ones who change it. And somewhere above them, a full moon watched. The same moon that had marked Nova's birth. The same moon that had awakened her power. The same moon that would shine on whatever came next. Because Nova was moon-blessed. And she was done being small. If this story made you feel something, if you cried happy tears, if your heart raced, if you believed in love even for just an hour, then this channel is your home. Subscribe to Gracie Werewolf Story Bank for more stories that make you feel alive. Stories about outcasts who become queens. About rejects who find their power. About love that changes worlds. Comment your country below and tell me, are you Team Cade, Team Riker, or Team Ashton? Or are you Team Nova, choosing all 3? Let's build this community together. Let's create a space where everyone who's ever felt invisible knows they matter. Where everyone who's been told they're worthless discovers their power. Hit that subscribe button. Join this family. And let's keep telling stories that remind us why love is worth fighting for.